Going live. Hopefully we don't have a lot of background noise this time. I know that StreamYard has issues, and I try to have like a little bit of a prepper area where you can kind of see what I'm doing. So on this show, we are the militant, hardcore vegans. No, what I'm trying to do here is try to get you to get a few more plants into your diet because I think that the phytonutrients are important. It's important to get some phytonutrients into your diet. And if you can start adding some plants to your diet, finding something that tastes good to you, it will only benefit your health. So we pulled a recipe off the internet. My friend Gina, who cooked with me last week, gave me a recipe that she kind of thought looks good. It's an udon noodle bowl. So I am going to read you the ingredients. 1 tablespoon sesame oil. When I cook on the show, I do it hardcore, forks over knives. I'm not using sesame oil. Quarter cup quartered fresh mushrooms, which, as you'll see, I have probably way more than a half a cup because my cabbage is more. So we've got portobello and we've got white button in here. So nothing too strange. That's probably another portobello. So I'll show you the packaging from that. I've also got half cup shredded carrots. Well, I don't know if I shredded them. It's more of, I forget the style of cut that is called, but I used a knife. I tried to use the grater and wasn't doing such a great job. A clove of minced garlic. Okay, so we're going to talk about the hierarchy of health. I'm using pre-minced garlic from the store. It has a little bit of added stuff to that. What does it have to it? I think it's just citric acid. Citric acid, which I think is not a chemical that is going to be bad for you. You decide, right? So I always talk about the hierarchy of health. The whole plant is the best. Marginally processed is good. Highly processed, you start getting into where I think it's getting worse for your health. Use a little bit of that, that's okay. But you got the plant oils, which there's controversy even in the vegan world. Like, hey, can you have a little bit of oil? Yeah, maybe it's okay, maybe it's not okay. I would suggest that if you have some heart disease, try to use very little oil in your diet. 2 cups low sodium vegetable broth. Gina brought this over for the recipe last time. We're going to use it. We got 4 teaspoons reduced sodium soy sauce. I don't think I have reduced sodium. So we're going to use regular soy sauce, and I don't have it ready, and I can't reach it. So I'm not going to show you that right now, but we are going to add that. So rice vinegar, I do have rice vinegar here. Mizcan rice vinegar. You could also use mirin, which is sweeter and more fermented. I think it's got a little bit of alcohol in it, but alcohol usually cooks off when you do this. So I may have to jump up here to get the soy sauce, and hopefully I don't create a big chunk. I've got some tofu. So this is way more than 6 ounces. I think this is 14 ounces. It's just cubes. It says 1 inch. I don't think that these are squares. I just cut them the best I could. A zucchini. I've already got that cut. It says a half a zucchini, but because some of my other ingredients are not the right measurement, that is supposed to be a half cup shredded cabbage. That's probably way more than a cup. 2 tablespoons thinly sliced. 2 tablespoons thinly sliced green onion. I've also got a little bit of leek in there. Leek is very different. I'll show you the difference between a leek. If you're using the white part, I think the leek kind of, this is cilantro. 2 tablespoons fresh cilantro, 1 tablespoon chopped roasted peanuts or cashews, salted. I like to stay away from salt as much as I can. Most American diets have way too much salt in them as it is. I think it affects your blood pressure. Those are cashews toasted. My wife cooked those earlier for something she was doing. Some lime wedges. Those are over here. These are key limes. That is a key lime. I have probably cut up some regular lime also. That is a regular lime. And if I put them together in my hand, you can see one is much smaller than the other. I've never used key lime. I have had a key lime pie, but it probably was from the store. Probably had a lot of excess stuff to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on the stove. We're going to get these pans hot. I'm going to bring. I've got some water in this one. This is a mismatched lid for this. I've got lots of water in there. It calls for 4 to 5 cups. I'm going by the instructions off of the noodles. We're going to cook some udon noodles. This is some soba rice noodles. Basically, it's just wheat and buckwheat. Let's see if I can get that where you can read the ingredients. I'm going to break those in half. I'm just going to take them on the edge of the counter. I don't know if you can see that over here. Break them in half. Just because my pot is small, that's why I'm going to do that, because it makes it very difficult to put the noodles in if you don't have a large enough pot, and I want to get them cooking at the same space and time. So we're going to go grab us a chair over here, get us some soy sauce. It's probably best for you when I'm off camera. You don't have to see my cooking mode. All right, this is not low salt soy. This is regular soy. I would suggest that you probably don't need extra salt in your diet, so I think it would be best low salt. But I don't have any low salt, so we're going to use high salt today. So in the description, it says, in a large saucepan, heat oil over medium heat. We're not doing that. Add mushrooms, carrots, and garlic. Cook and stir 3 minutes. So we're going to do this after we do the noodles, because we're going to first do the noodles, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open the noodles, get those ready. We're waiting for our water to boil, because on the back of the instructions here, it says bring 4 to 5 quarts of water to a boil, add noodles, and boil 7 minutes or until tender. So I'm going to kind of watch those, because in the past, because I'm talking to you guys, I overdo my noodles. I've overdone my noodles in the past, and the noodles did not taste great. You can sometimes buy, so this recipe calls for cold noodles, refrigerated package of noodles, 7 ounces. This is 8 ounces, and it's dry noodles. So you have to do a little bit of cooking. It's going to add some time, but the cooking part of this dish is less than the traditional having to cook your noodles at the beginning. Oh, goodness, this is not coming apart easily. Let's try not to cut our hand. Let's start that off. I'm going to cook the entire batch. It's going to go in our dish. I'm going to start pouring a little bit of my vegetable broth in there, because since I'm not using oil, I just kind of want to see how hot this pan is getting. So once that starts heating up, I'll kind of know. I'm going to put that on high until I can hear it start to crackle a little bit. That's what we're going to cook everything in. But it's also going to take us 7 minutes of cooking the noodles to get going. So once again, I constantly talk on this show about the hierarchy of health. I think that the whole plant is the best. The more of the whole plant you can do, the better. So this recipe called for green onion, 2 tablespoons. I did use green onion, but I also used a little bit of the top of a leek. Have you seen a leek? It looks a lot like a huge green onion. The white part is much more mild. It's much milder than a green onion, or regular onion for that matter. So a leek, I think, is in the same family as an onion. I believe it's called the allium family, or is it alum? I'm not sure, but it is very good for you, in my opinion. The greens didn't taste anything like an onion green, so I did cut a little bit of that in there. It will change the flavor a little bit. I think that a lot of times in a dish, you can try different vegetables of the same sort to see how it affects the dish. I think that's the beauty of cooking, is you can experiment and choose for yourself what tastes great. And I think that a leek tastes much milder than onion, but it does have a little bit of a different flavor. Unless you've tried it, you won't know if you like it. So we also cut up purple cabbage for this dish. Purple cabbage, that's much more than what the recipe called for. So hopefully this cooks down to something. There's also, in a lot of Asian dishes, they use a Napa cabbage, which is a very long, I've cut off most of this Napa cabbage, but there's a Napa cabbage. That's very good for you. There's also green cabbage. I've got a green cabbage here, but I didn't need any of that because I had plenty of purple cabbage. So these vegetables are all very good for you. Let's see how close we are to getting a boil. We are not even close to getting a boil. I am starting to see some little bubbles from the side. So let's protect our hand and not burn it. That is not very hot yet either. We're going to get this to a boil. I also probably should have something that I can strain the noodles through, because I am going to dump those back in. So let's get down here. You can use a colander, or you can use something with a wire mesh to drain the liquid from your noodles. So we're going to use this to drain the noodles once we get to that portion. I always like to have a little bit of water available that can affect how fast you're cooking. Sometimes if things are getting burnt, you can add some water to slow down the cooking in case you haven't adjusted your heat well. I do like gas for cooking. Some people, because the environment, are against using gas products. You do you, boo. But I use gas because I think that it can heat fast and you can turn down the heat fast. You can adjust the heat speed, if you will. If things are starting to get burnt, or it's cooking too fast and you need some time to catch up with maybe some prep that you forgot to do or something like this, you can adjust your heat a lot. So where are we at here? We are still trying to get our noodles on, bruh. So once this comes to a boil, we're going to throw our noodles in. We're going to let those go for 7 minutes. Then we're going to start doing what I said with the rest of the stuff, because after 7 minutes, we're going to have our udon noodles, which this recipe is a pretty quick recipe, especially if you've already had pre-cooked noodles, which it calls for. But I did not have pre-cooked noodles, which you can buy in certain stores already pre-cooked in the refrigerated areas, especially Asian stores. Here in Arizona, we have several that I really like. Lily's. In the past, Lily's smelled like fish when you walked into the entrance, right? I think that they are better at not smelling like fish, but it's amazing what they have in there. A lot of non-traditional American foods you can find in there. There's also a place in Tempe called H Mart, and they have a huge selection of fresh veggies and fruits that I bought my mangosteens there. I've never seen mangosteens in another grocery store. So I think it's cool to go out and check out places, especially produce areas that may have some different fruits and vegetables that you don't have normally in the normal grocery stores. So having said that, we got the mushrooms, we got the carrots, and the garlic, and that's what we're going to add first. Garlic, a little glass jar of garlic. We're just going to spoon out. The recipe calls for a clove. That is a little bit more than a clove. We'll probably use about half of this jar, maybe a little more. I don't think I'm going to use the whole thing, because that is probably 4 cloves in there. And I love my garlic. But, oh, here we go. We got us a little boil. So we're going to pop our noodles in there. We're going to put our timer on in the background. I'll probably let this go for a little more. I like to do the throw test, just so your toss up against the wall and see if it sticks, and that's how you know if it's done or not. So once again, because this is such a small bowl, that is why I broke everything in half, because I knew, hey, you got to get these guys all in there. So as the noodle deforms from soaking up the water and getting heated up, it will all fit in there. We're going to let that come back to a boil. We're going to put our timer right now on for 7 minutes. And we're going to start, just so I can kind of keep an eye on that. So we're not going to start cooking our regular dish until we got some noodles. Once again, I try to keep these little videos about 20 to 30 minutes, just giving you ideas of recipes that you can try at home. I think that the more you can cook for yourself, the healthier it'll be. You can go to restaurants, you can still find some healthy stuff, but I think that if you really, really want to optimize your health, you can cook yourself and have meals that are way, way, way better for you. So I like to spend my Saturdays cooking a little bit of food that I can eat during the week because I think those meals are much healthier for me than anything that I can buy. I'm going to see if I can set this. This lid is not designed for this bowl, so I'm trying to just not boil over here, create a big giant fire hazard. Just did, which is what you don't want to do. I used to call this the chaos kitchen because guess what? I'm very chaotic in the kitchen. I'm getting better at the kitchen. I do like to practice. When I would say that if you have one cutting implement, a big fat bladed knife is the best. I think you have the most control. You can keep your fingers out of the way because you get a big fat blade. Pull your fingertips back or use the fingertips on the side of the knife as you cut, depending on how sharp your knife is, having like a semicircular motion is helpful too for speed and staying safe, cutting all the way through. So we'll get better at knives. We might talk about some knife technique in the future. We might talk about other different things. Once again, because I couldn't tell you about what the particular cutting method is called. A lot of people that are chefs know the different cutting methods. And so a lot of people that I read too talk about when you are using some sort of spice or herb, a lot of time herb, let's call it a herb, like a green, you want to bruise it, you want to pinch it, you want to be rough with it because you're releasing some of the flavor from that. So a chiffonade is where you kind of roll up your herb as you're cutting, thinly slicing the herb, right? So that will bring out some of the flavor too. So we've already done that. Let's see here. I don't know if I have a fork. Let's get a fork. I got a plastic fork. That's not going to be very helpful. If you have a spoon over here, maybe I can get one noodle out just to make sure. I do not like my noodles al dente. There are lots of people that like their noodles al dente, which is a little bit firm. I like floppy noodles. So that is the flavor that I like. I also like my vegetables cooked a little more, especially, I don't know if you're familiar with green beans, but I like the more southern style of cooking where they are more mushy than the northern style of cooking your green beans or buttercorns. Where are we at here? We have gone about 3 minutes with our noodles. And the water is not clear anymore because I'm sure the buckwheat and the regular noodles, these are a little less processed than regular noodles. Let's move this around a little bit. Not let these guys get too plunked up. Sometimes people add a little bit of salt to their water so that the temperature of the water when it comes to a boil is higher. This is no longer boiling just because the addition of the noodles are getting a little clumpy, and that's why I'm them moving around. I don't know, some people add oil. I think that this also helps with separating the noodles as they cook. But once again, when I'm cooking here, I'm trying not to add any extra oil because I would suggest to you that most Americans get way more saturated fat in their diet than they need to. And especially if you're worried about your cholesterol. I am a cardiac nurse. I believe that keeping your saturated fats low in your diet and not getting your LDL cholesterol low in your blood is a really great step for your health. Now, you get to decide for yourself what you believe is healthiest. But I think that having more vegetables, more plants, more fruits, more seeds, grains, all that stuff is better for us. And noodles are usually made from meat or buckwheat or some sort of grain. So it is processed. And once again, I talk about the hierarchy of health and how I think that the less processed it is, the healthier it is for us, the more phytonutrients are still in the plant. And it is the synergy of all those different chemicals, phytonutrients in the plant, that sometimes we don't even know how good they work together. A lot of drugs, they isolate out certain phytonutrients. They find the specific chemical molecule, whatever, that is doing something that they wanted to do. So, for example, I think that aspirin was first isolated from willow bark, but it's in a lot of plants. There's cumin has a lot of acetylsalicylic acid, which is the basis for aspirin, right? So that is the isolated component that helps make the blood thinner. So people that have problems with their heart are usually on aspirin to prevent a blood clot from forming. So what kills people from a heart attack? A heart attack kills people because there is a plaque that ruptures in the heart artery, and it creates a clotting cascade, which causes a clot in a very tiny artery that's usually somewhere between 2 and 6 millimeters in diameter, and then the blood flow to the heart is completely closed. If you're in LAD, or the branch that goes at the front of the heart, and that closes, there's probably a high probability that you could fibrillate. You could go into ventricular fibrillation. That means that your heart is no longer pumping. The electrical conduction is screwed up, and you no longer get blood to your brain. If you don't have blood to your brain, or you don't have somebody that will defibrillate you with a mechanical device, you will die if you fibrillate, and it's usually unwitnessed. So I'm going to step off camera. I'm going to drain my noodles in a bowl here. Now we're going to just throw those noodles back in the pot, show you what it looks like here in a minute. So we got us some noodles here. We're going to let those cool down a little bit. Then turn our timer off. Putting my hands on the noodles. I washed my hands before we started cooking, so not too close there. I won't make my fingers till after you guys are done. Yeah. I don't think that was even going. Like a well-oiled machine. So I don't think we need this anymore. So I'm going to let that warm up a little bit. So the bottom of this pan is actually... Hey, did you know that the shelf on the bottom of your stove, which I'm currently storing pots and pans in, is actually to keep your food warm? So if I were a really good chef, I would not have pots and pans under my stove, and I might put these noodles under the stove so that they would stay warm. I'll probably put them in the oven here because we're not really using the oven. But it's more for when you're using the oven and you're baking stuff, cooking stuff, you can keep food that you're not using right away in that little shelf underneath. I did not know that until just recently. So anyway, we're letting this fluid in this pan get warm enough that I like it. Then we're going to start adding the carrots, the mushrooms, and the garlic together. We're going to let those get warmed for about 3 minutes. I think that's getting really close. So, carrots. Mushrooms. Mushrooms release a lot of water into your dish. Carrots, mushrooms, garlic. Garlic. Lots of garlic. We love us some garlic. I'm going to kind of stir that around as it heats up. Where do we add the cabbage? It doesn't say when to add the cabbage. I'm adding the cabbage now. We're going to cook this all down. zucchini. The zucchini gets added after, so we're gonna let this cook for about 3 minutes. I'm gonna just kind of try to keep it moving a little bit. This might have been done in a much bigger pan. I also, like I said, I added a lot more than what this asked for. I just kind of want this stuff to release its water a little bit. Then I'm going to start adding. So it says 3 minutes. I'm going to go for about 3 minutes. Then I'm going to add 2 cups of broth, the soy sauce, rice vinegar, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. Right? So you will get some water released from the mushrooms and these other vegetables for that matter. But just know that a lot of times when you are cooking mushrooms, you are going to get a lot of water release. So it is going to change how the dish performs the more mushrooms you add. So ask me how I know, because I've cooked a little bit now with mushrooms. So I've seen where the mushrooms, like I said, I like to release some of the water in here. I just want to get it to where I'm not cooking so fast and hard that this is flat on the bottom. I'm going to go just a little bit longer on that. It is starting to release some of the flavors and the juices out of there. So we're going to go ahead. Also, what I'm going to suggest to you that if you like tofu, a lot of times tofu, what it's going to do is it's going to take on the taste of the surrounding stuff. So if you love spices and stuff, throw some spices on there before you cook it. So in this dish, it's kind of incorporated later. You can, some people will use oil and get it a little crispy on the outside. Once again, I'm not cooking with oil in this particular show, so I don't like adding any oil to what I'm cooking on the weekends. My wife does use oil. I do sometimes use oil. I think that some oils are safer than others. I think that if you're using an unsaturated fat, maybe if you could get a true Evo olive oil, that you're doing really good. But I would suggest that most of the brands, even if they advertise as an Evo, they are not truly an Evo. So we're going to go ahead and pour us some vegetable broth. That was 2 cups, approximately 2 cups. It was half of this, 32 ounces, 16 ounces is 2 cups. We're going to add us some soy sauce. We're going to add us, so it asks for a teaspoon of rice vinegar and how much of the soy sauce? 4 teaspoons. So I'm going to just go by eye, 4 teaspoons. That is probably a little more than 4 teaspoons. We'll see. A teaspoon of rice vinegar. Maybe a little more than rice vinegar. We're going to let this come to a boil. We'll turn the heat up. We're going to bring that to a boil. Put your lid on. We'll help that come to a boil faster. We may add a little bit more of all those ingredients because, like I said, the cabbage and the mushrooms here were a little bit more. Once again, all we're doing is we're getting this to come to a boil. Then we're going to add the tofu, the udon noodles. and the zucchini. I love pepper. I'm going to add pepper to this. It is my idea that you can add pepper to anything because I love the taste of pepper. If you want to be more in the style of Asian cooking, you might use more white pepper. This is a blend of white pepper and black pepper. And I love grinded pepper, especially on the top of it, because it has a little bit coarser flavor, a little bit coarser grind to it when you don't do it to yourself. We've been here 30 minutes, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the dish after we're done. We're going to let this boil. We're going to let it go for 5 minutes. Then we're going to add the cashews, the green onions, and the cilantro on at the end of the dish, and some lemon wedges for effect. So we'll come back. We're not going to come back to Facebook, but we are going to post some pictures of what this dish will look like after the case. If you would love the recipe, I would love for you to reach out to me, send some comments, DM me. I'll send you the recipe, the original recipe. I'll give credit to the people that gave me the recipe. I have adjusted their recipe a tiny bit because I don't use oil. What I'm also going to talk to you about is if you would love to cook with me or teach me something that I don't know or show me a recipe that I can make hardcore, forks over knives, vegan, I would love to connect with you. I would love to do it virtually or live at my house or whatever. Let's connect. Let's cook together. Let's have you teach me something new. You guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. And good day. Let's cut off the prepper view first.